Hi everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you a useful little hint today and a little tip to make your bracelet a little bit more than just an ordinary strung bracelet. This is using a button clasp and then making a loop out of seed beads. So whether or not you're doing a button with a shank or a button without a shank, the basic techniques are the same. I'm going to be using 49 strand beading wire, and this is Beadalon's brand 49 strand 0.018. I also have 2 crimp beads that I'm going to be using. I have my button and some beads for my spacers. The last thing that I'm going to have is size 11/0 seed beads, and this is what I'm going to use in order to do my bracelet. So to start this bracelet, I'm going to start with the end of my clasp. So I'm going to start here with my button, and again, this is a shank button. This is one that does not have a shank to it. With the one that does not have a shank to it, all I'm doing is I'm taking the wire through the button, and then I'm going to crimp on the outer side. With the shank, I'm going to follow that same example. I'm going to put on one of my crimp beads, let it drop down a little bit on my wire. I'm running through the back of the shank, back through the crimp bead, and either taking a crimping pliers, which I've done in this piece, or just a needle nose pliers. I'm going to crimp that crimp bead nice and flat. And that's going to hold the end clasp in place. Onto that, I'm going to put my beads, and I'm just using some of my 11/0 seed beads here, as well as some mixed glass beads to create my bracelet. I'm just doing these in whatever pattern I happen to pick them up. I've chosen the orange with the light pink to make it pop a little bit. And I string these on in place. Usually when I make bracelets or necklaces, I tend to use bead stoppers. With this one, it's nice to just start with your clasp. So it might be a good idea to take all your beads, if you know what design you want, and lay them out ahead of time on a beadboard. You can work off a beadboard. The beadboard doesn't sit really well underneath the camera here. So what I'm going to do is, after I put some of my beads on, I'm going to feed those beads over the wire that's sticking out at the end. I usually like to have about 1 inch of wire that I'm working with towards the end of my project that I'm going back through. And a little tip, if you have trouble getting your beads through, you can always cut the wire down, or what you can do is kind of spin them in place. And sometimes, even though you can't push them, they'll spin in place. This one's a little bit difficult, doesn't want to go. So I'm just going to take my wire cutters and going to trim off the extra wire at that point. It's already back through the other beads, so it'll be fine. I'm going to continue adding my beads to length, and just adding my seed beads and then my randomly chosen glass mix beads here. And this should give it a fun look. And I'm going to keep going to get the length that I need. And this bracelet here I tend to wear a lot, so I know that this is a good length for me. And after I have the length that I want, I'm going to get ready to do my loop. So I just need to put a few more beads on here, and then we'll get ready to see the loop being made. Okay, so I think I'm about to length. Maybe one more bead on there. And after I put that last bead on, I'm going to get ready to do my loop. So my beads are on, it's to length and to the fit that I want, and I'm going to get ready again to do this loop. To do the loop, you think already, oh, I need to put on seed beads. Actually, the first thing that I'm going to do after I put on one of my seed beads, just to finish off my bead pattern here, I'm going to put on my next crimp tube. So I'm picking up my next crimp tube, and I'm adding this onto my wire. I'm then going to figure out how many beads I need to add to go around my button clasp, and I'm going to feed those onto my wire as well. So I'm just going to use my beading wire as a needle, and I'm going to pick up a bunch of these seed beads. Usually it's going to depend on the size of your button that you're using in order to figure out exactly how many you need. You want it to go around the button, but you don't want it to be super big that it's going to fall off the button. So you want just kind of enough that's going to go around the circumference of your button. So when you're looking at your button, I'm going to, after I add some more of these seed beads, that's how I'm going to do my measurement. After I feed these buttons on, and you can use, these are 11-ohs, you can use 15-ohs, you can use 8s if you really want, if you have a larger button. I find that the 11s look nice with my beads when I'm going on with them. So now I have a bunch of beads onto my wire, and I'm going to see if these go around the circumference of the button. It's getting close, but it's not going to quite make it. So I need to keep going and adding some more seed beads. Just pick a couple more on here. Whenever I have to do this, it makes me appreciate a needle, since it's so much easier to pick the beads up off the mat with a needle rather than the beading wire. I've got a couple more beads on here, and I'll check again. So I'll do another little circumference check and make sure that we're going to be able to go through the button. That looks great. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to feed my wire back through the crimp tube. If I can, back through the seed bead that is already there, back through the next bead, and I'm going to pull it out. I want to pull nice and tight on my project so I know that my loop is going to stay in its place. Then again, for this one, I'm just using my needle nose pliers. I'm going to go right into that crimp tube, and I'm going to squash down on just the crimp tube. Once I squash down on the crimp tube, I'm going to cut off my extra wire here, and that's going to get me my finished bracelet. And it just adds a nice little look to the ends of the bracelet when you're putting them on, that it just kind of makes it look a little bit more finished and gives it a nice little, I think, almost bohemian look to have that sort of a clasp rather than just doing your standard toggle clasp or lobster clasp. So this is a fun way to use some of the 11s that you have, and if you have some buttons or clasps at home, you can take these and use your 11-oh seed beads and just crimp in the same fashion that you have been, but just adding those at the start and the finish. And it's going to get you a nice little look for the ends of your bracelets or your necklaces that you could do it with as well. So thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully it gives you a couple of ideas that you can use and that you can take and make some jewelry with. You can also check out the rest of our Facebook page as well as the rest of our YouTube videos. Hopefully you get a chance, if you're near one of our locations, to stop in and visit us and see what we have to offer you. And you get some great ideas and have fun making jewelry. So thanks a lot for watching.